Hello again, friends. This week we return to Russian tales with a request from Teresa. She is a massive fan of her girl, Baba Yaga, and she doesn't even hate me for last week's little song. I hope. The Russian tales tend to be long and a tiny bit repetitive, so strap in for Marya, Morevna. A long time ago, in a Russian kingdom, closer than you might think, lived a Tsar and his queen, and their son, Ivan, and 3 daughters, Marya, Olga, and Anna. The years passed, and it was time for the old Tsar to hand over his kingdom to his son on his deathbed. On his deathbed, the Tsar instructed young Ivan to see that his sisters be properly married and taken care of while they were still fresh and young. Ah, the familiar sound of the patriarchy and the idea that women have an expiration date. As the years passed, the now Tsar Ivan found himself walking in a garden on a palace grounds with his 3 sisters. Out of nowhere, a black cloud appeared, covering the entire sky. As this happened, Ivan instructed his sisters to retreat to the inside of the palace before the storm began. As soon as they all stepped inside the palace, the lightning flashed across the entire sky. Thunder rattled the land, and rain covered the entire kingdom. Next thing they knew, a falcon flew through a window, and as he landed, he turned into a handsome prince. I feel like this should be an "ah" moment. He looked up at Marya, then Ivan, and asked for Marya's hand in marriage. Ivan accepted the proposal. They were married shortly thereafter, and the falcon carried her back to his kingdom. How?
It's a simple question of weight ratios. A 5-ounce bird could not carry a 1-pound coconut.
Well, it doesn't matter. Will you?
1 year to the day, Ivan found himself walking through a palace garden with the remaining 2 sisters. Just as did happen the previous year, a black cloud appeared, and Ivan and his sisters ran back to the palace to escape the storm. When they got back to the palace, the storm arrived, but this time an eagle flew in, turning into a handsome young prince. He looked at Olga, then at Ivan, and asked for Olga's hand in marriage. Ivan approved, as did Olga, and they were quickly married, after which the eagle carried Olga back to his kingdom. I feel like I should be making a Lord of the Rings eagles joke here.
The eagles are coming!
1 year to the day of the second meeting of a prince, Ivan was once again walking in the palace garden with his youngest and only remaining sister, Anna. The same turn of events that occurred in the previous years once again came to pass. As they got back inside the palace, a raven appeared immediately after the storm started. As the raven landed, he turned into a handsome prince. He looked at Anna, then at Ivan, and asked for Anna's hand in marriage. Ivan did not hesitate in giving them his blessing, and Anna did not hesitate in accepting the proposal. They were married, and the raven carried Anna off to his kingdom. All right, size-wise, they went from, well, that's ridiculous, to, well, I guess if it's a big enough eagle and a small enough woman, to, seriously! Tsar Ivan now lived alone in his immense palace, lonely and without a family to look after. He missed his sisters so much that one day he told his princes and boyars that he was leaving the kingdom in their care, and that he was going to leave the kingdom for an indefinite period of time. Like a responsible king. He mounted his horse and rode off. He rode to a field of slain army soldiers. This army happened to be defeated by the army of Marya, Morevna, which happened to be resting in a field of white tents. There he met Marya, and he made it clear to her that he came in peace. She invited him into her tent for a feast, and he ended up staying with her for 3 days and nights. Both realized that they were madly in love and set a date to marry in Marya's kingdom. For years they lived happily and in peace. What about Ivan's kingdom? One day, Marya came to Ivan and told him that she was going to leave to battle an army in another portion of her kingdom. When she departed, she told Ivan that he was in charge of the kingdom until she got back, and not to enter the chamber at the tallest turret in the castle under any circumstances. Well, gosh, we know who carries the sword in his family. While she was gone, he wandered the castle for days, looking into every room, wondering when his love was going to come back. He remembered that in the tallest turret there was something inside that he was not supposed to see. Burning with curiosity, he ran to the uppermost chamber in the turret and unlocked the door. "Have we learned nothing from Bluebeard?" Inside, he found a giant lying sprawled on the floor with his arms and legs chained to the floor with 7 iron chains. The giant pleaded to Ivan that he had had no food or drink in 10 years. "No, Ivan, don't do it! Take the 7 iron chains as a hint!" Ivan, feeling pity, brought the giant a pail of water, which the giant drank in 1 gulp. He asked for 2 more pails, and when he finished the last one, he got up and broke through the chains like they were paper thin. This was no ordinary giant. This was the one and only Koshi the Deathless. Dun, dun, dun. He then told Ivan that he would never see his wife again, and like a whirlwind flew out of the window. Koshi flew across the land and swept up Marya, who was returning home from battle, and carried her off to his kingdom. Ivan was depressed, and he sat in the castle, crying and weeping for his mistake and the loss of his love.
My God, pull yourself together!
Time passed, and wounds healed, but he still missed his wife, so he decided to go and rescue her. He rode off on his horse for the 3 days, and on the 3rd he saw a beautiful castle in front of him. Next to him, perched in an oak tree, was a falcon that, at the sight of Ivan, flew down and turned into his first brother-in-law. They went inside the castle, where his sister Marya was there to meet him. Ivan stayed with them for 3 days and told them that he had to leave. He left his silver spoon with them, so they would know how he was doing, and rode off on his horse. He rode for 3 days, and on the 3rd day he came upon another castle that was more beautiful than the first. Looking at the immense structure, he sat on his horse next to a large tree. In the oak was perched an eagle, who, upon seeing Ivan, flew down and turned into the second brother-in-law. They went inside to the castle and met with Ivan's sister Olga, who was delighted to see him again. Ivan stayed in the castle for 3 days and said he would have to depart because he was on a quest to find his wife, Marya Morevna. I feel like I know where this is going. To see his progress, the two asked Ivan to leave his silver fork. He did, as he was asked, and rode off. Why is he carrying around all this cutlery? Is it a common practice I don't know about? Bring your own silverware? Riding non-stop for 3 days, he came upon another castle that was more beautiful than both of the ones he stayed at before, put together. And then his horse collapsed. In a large oak was perched a raven, who swooped down to Ivan and turned into the third brother-in-law. He invited Ivan in, and Anna, the youngest of the sisters, embraced Ivan, since she had not seen him in so long. Ivan spent 3 days with them and rode off, leaving them with a silver tobacco box, so that they could keep track of his progress. What, no knife? He traveled for 3 more days before coming up to the kingdom of Koshi the Deathless. Ivan bravely walked into the palace grounds and found Marya Morevna, who warned him that Koshi was out on a hunt. Ivan took Marya on his horse and rode off with her, hoping to make it home. Honestly, that poor horse! Koshi, returning from the hunt, was informed by a horse of his that Ivan had taken Marya. Snitch. Hearing this news, he mounted the magical horse and caught up to Ivan and Marya in a flash. Koshi swept up Marya and told her that he would not kill him, since he took pity on him in the past. Nice of him, I think. Dejected, he sat on his horse and thought about his defeated effort. Driven to have his wife back, he rode back to Koshi's palace to once again rescue Marya. When he found Marya again, she warned him that Koshi would be back soon. He ignored her warning and charged off on his horse. Koshi came back and was informed by his horse that Ivan had taken Marya again. Mounting the magical horse, he caught up to the 2 escapees just as fast as he did previously, took Marya, and told Ivan that if he was ever to do that again, he would be killed. This time Ivan returned and waited several days until Koshi left the palace to go in and rescue Marya. Ivan found Marya and told her to get on the horse and ride off with him. She was reluctant and told him that he would be killed if Koshi found them again. Ivan told her that it was better to be dead than not to be with her again, and she responded by getting on his horse and riding off with him. Well, this might be a short story. Short for a Russian story anyway. Koshi returned and found that Marya was missing and galloped after them in a fury. He caught up to them, grabbed Marya, sliced Ivan into many small pieces, and put the pieces into a tarred barrel, which he then threw into the deep blue sea. I guess the end. Just goes to show you that Oh, wait. There's more writing. As this was happening, the spoon, fork, and tobacco box all turned black. The brothers-in-law all realized that something very terrible had happened to Ivan. The eagle flew to the sea and snared the barrel, carrying it to shore. The falcon flew off to obtain the water of living, and the raven flew off to obtain the water of dead. The falcon and the raven flew back to the eagle that was waiting for them. The 3 of them broke the barrel and put Ivan's body back together piece by piece. Like a jigsaw puzzle? Next, the raven poured the water of the dead on the severed pieces, and they fused back together. Then the falcon poured the water of living on the body, and Ivan sprung back to life. Ivan thanked his brothers-in-law and walked back to Koshi's palace. When Koshi left in the morning, Ivan snuck inside and found Marya and told her to find out where Koshi acquired his magical horses. When Koshi returned, Marya waited for the opportune time and asked him the question. He answered that he got the horses from Baba Yaga, who lived on the other side of the river of fire, which his magical handkerchief helped him cross. And I keep my magical handkerchief right here, unguarded. Also, I sleep like the dead, so, the best time to steal from me. Well, I don't see how that can come back and bite me. Good night, Marya. While Koshi slept, Marya took his magic handkerchief and gave it to Ivan and told him to go to Baba Yaga's house on the other side of the river of fire. Ivan started off for Baba Yaga's house, and soon enough he was at the river of fire. He waved the magic handkerchief, and a crystal bridge rose up from a low and decrepit bridge, and he was able to cross safely. Ivan walked and walked and was very hungry. Did his horse finally quit? He came upon a mother bird with her young. He thought of having them to eat, but the mother bird told him not to eat them because they might need their help later, and Ivan trekked on. I think if I lived in a place where everything could talk to me, I would end up a vegan. Still famished, Ivan came up to a beehive from which he wanted to take some honey. However, the queen bee flew up to him and said not to eat any honey, since he might need her help in the future. And so he walked on. Not having eaten for a long time, he crossed paths with a lioness and her cub. Ivan wanted to kill the cub for a meal, but was told not to by the lioness, since he might need their help someday. And he walked on. Where on earth does this story take place? Are there a lot of lions in Russia? He walked long, exhausted from severe hunger, and eventually made it to Baba Yaga's house. He met with her and told her that he would serve her. She told him that he would tend her stables, and if one horse escaped, she would cut off his head and put it on a stake next to all her other heads. Yeah, that's not the best working conditions, but maybe there's a union? She would reward him, though, if he could manage to keep her horses at bay. She made him a hearty meal, told him to eat, sleep, and that he would be starting his work in the morning. Why do I feel like she is fattening him up? In the morning, before waking Ivan, Baba Yaga told all of her horses to run away from Ivan once they got in the meadow. Hey, that's cheating. After Ivan woke, he took the horses as instructed to the meadow. As soon as they arrived, all the horses ran off in different directions. Ivan could do nothing as he sat in the middle of the meadow. Then the same birds that Ivan had spared swooped out of the sky.
Swooping is bad.
Forcing all the horses back to their stables. Baba Yaga, angered at her horses, asked them what happened. They told her they had no choice because the birds would have plucked their eyes out. She instructed them next time to scatter into the deepness of the forests. Ivan woke up the next day and took the horses out, and they ran into the depths of the forest. As soon as they had the chance, the same lioness, her cub, and an army of lions ran into the forest and chased the horses back to their stables. Lions do not live in forests. Baba Yaga, once again angry at her horses since they were back in their stables in the morning. This time she told them to hide in the blue sea once Ivan took them out. Ivan woke up and took the horses out, and sure enough, they ran off into the blue sea. Then a swarm of bees flew at the horses that were standing in the sea and stung them until they returned home. One of the bees flew to Ivan and told him to go back to Baba Yaga's house, but so that she does not know that he is there, and hides in the stables. The bee also told him to find a mangy-looking colt and flee at night. Ivan did as he was told and rode off on the ugly colt toward the river of fire. No, he did not. He reached the river of fire, waved the handkerchief, and crossed the crystal bridge that appeared out of nowhere. The next morning, Baba Yaga found that Ivan had taken one of her colts, and she rode after him. When she came up to the river of fire, she tried to cross it, but fell in, and was never heard from again. Well, that's just wishful thinking. Once Ivan led his colt out into a pasture, it suddenly turned into a strong and beautiful steed. Like magic. Ivan mounted him and rode to the palace of Koshi the Deathless. Once he reached the palace, he found Marya Morevna and put her on his new magical horse and rode off. Koshi found out from one of his magic horses that Ivan had come back and took Marya. Furious, Koshi mounted the horse and charged after them. When Koshi caught up to them, Ivan's horse struck Koshi in the head and killed him with that blow. So, Koshi the Deathless unless kicked by a horse. Maybe that's just too long for the name tag. Marya mounted Koshi's horse, and she and Ivan rode back to their kingdom, stopping to feast at each of the brother-in-law's castles. Tsar Ivan and Marya Morevna and Marya unified their two kingdoms, which they helped reign over happily ever after. Huh. That was oddly familiar. I mean, it was like someone stitched together a bunch of other stories and just slightly changed certain details about some characters, and then, it made millions of dollars. Or something. I do like the story, but I don't think it's Baba Yaga's best story. I'm sure Teresa knows lots more. Well, we have reached the part where I ask you to like, share, and subscribe. On the bright side, I do leave it to the end, so it's easy to skip. If you want, you could make a comment about how nice it is that it's not in the middle or the beginning. Or, about how much you loved the story. Or maybe even a request. There is also the notification bell, so you can know when I put out a new video. I am eternally grateful to Pixabay.com for all the wonderful images and sounds provided by their contributors. If you would like to support me on Patreon, Instagram, or Facebook, there are links in the description below. And I am eternally grateful to you, my friends, for being here with me week after week, no matter what is happening in my life. Knowing you will be here with me every week for another story, well, it just lights me up like a star. Thank you. And now, a special thank you to all my Patreon friends.